This lecture is over Book 9, Part 1 of the Odyssey, lines 1 through 343. The passages to reread closely are 106 to 125, the Lotus Eaters, 244 to 262, Stealing from Polyphemus, 300 to 313, Polyphemus refuses hospitality. The key questions for discussion are, number 1, who forces the crewmen away from the Lotus Eaters, and what does it signify about him? Odysseus is the one who forces his crewmen from the island of the Lotus Eaters, bringing them back to the hollow ships, forcing them, hauling them under the rowing benches, lashing them fast, and shouting out commands, as stated in lines 110 to 113. Odysseus is the only one of his crewmen to resist the temptation he faced from the Lotus Eaters. Through this, he shows extreme determination and level-headedness, even in forcing his men back onto their ship. This display of these traits and his resistance of temptation qualify him as an epic hero. Further, the actions of the epic hero, in this case, drives the action forward, forcing Odysseus and his men onward toward Ithaca. On his way, he will endure more conflict. His epic heroism, however, will continue to aid him on his way. The second key question for discussion is, how are the themes of greed and temptation represented in this part? We already touched on this a little bit, but there are multiple times in which the themes of temptation and greed are represented. So, one is the aforementioned Lotus Eaters, offering Odysseus and his men a life free of conflict and full of peace. The only issue is that they would forget Ithaca and their journey home. Odysseus resists the temptation he faces and forces himself and his men away from the island and toward restoring the polis. The second time was when Odysseus mentions the women who held him back throughout his journey, wanting him for a husband. First, there was Circe, the queen of Aea, and the second was Calypso, who had him on her island for 7 years. Both women offer to be his wife, but he declines, resisting lust for them, which was something the Greeks found kind of impossible to do. The fact that Odysseus can resist the allure of 2 women, nymphs and queens no less, again qualifies him as an epic hero, and reveals his determination to get home to his wife. And the last example of temptation Odysseus faces is observed in the goods found in Polyphemus' cave. Once again, Odysseus' men fell to temptation and greed, eating the Cyclops' food and resting in his home. Well, Odysseus, he explored the cave out of his own curiosity. However, Odysseus' cleverness and determination were the only things that helped him and his crew to escape. So the last key question for discussion is, what leads to the conflict between Polyphemus and Odysseus and his men, and why is understanding the conflict essential to our understanding of the epic? When Polyphemus sees his guests, he greets them with words of hostility, and when they ask instead for hospitality, he insults them and begins devouring them. This is an obvious breach of Xenia, and drives all conflict between the two parties for the rest of the chapter. Understanding Xenia is essential because the polis is out of balance because of a breach of Xenia. And every breach of Xenia Odysseus encounters, from the Lotus Eaters to Circe to Polyphemus, is preparing him to face the conflict in Ithaca. It's preparing him to rebalance the polis. The epic itself is based around the conflict in Ithaca, and every conflict until then is a preparation, driving the plot forward until he finally reaches the polis. Thank you.
Talking about Book 9, lines 344 through 630. So the passages we're going to focus on today are lines 404 through 411, Odysseus says clever, lines 556, 562, which we've titled Odysseus is stubborn, lines 584 through 595, the Cyclops calls out to Poseidon. Now the first question for our passage is, what does Odysseus tell the Cyclops his name is, and how does this show Odysseus' cleverness? So Odysseus tells the Cyclops his name is Nobody. This shows that Odysseus is clever. He knows that there are other giants on the island and that they will not respond to the calls for help if they think nobody is coming. We see this payoff later when Odysseus and his men blind the Cyclops and escape. For our second passage, our key question is, what character trait is Odysseus exhibiting in this passage, and how does this compare to what we see from Achilles in the Iliad? So Odysseus exhibits stubbornness in this passage. We see the evidence of this when he says, "They could not bring my fighting spirit round." This is very similar to what we see from Achilles in the Iliad. Achilles is also shown as being very stubborn when he refuses to help the Achaeans after Agamemnon takes Briseis. The parallels between the two are intentional, as they're written theoretically by the same poet. However, we see more characteristics in Odysseus indicating he's humble as well as stubborn. Really more of an evolution from Achilles, considering this was written later. So for our third passage, we're looking at who the Cyclops is calling out to and how this penetrates the veil between gods and men. So Cyclops in this passage calls out to Poseidon, his father, after Odysseus and his men make their escape. This penetrates the veil between gods and men because we know Poseidon grants his son's wish and puts a curse on Odysseus that will prevent him from restoring his polis Ithaca. We see Poseidon really making good on this promise because really Odysseus is stuck at sea for, we know at least probably 20 years. But he's always determined to get back home and restore the polis. I think that's really the key theme throughout this epic, restoring the polis. Well, really throughout all epics, but especially in this one. That's going to conclude our lecture over Book 9, Part 2.
Reread closely. Lines 39 through 53, lines 189 through 195, and lines 294 through 300. Key questions for discussion. Why did the crew open the sack given to Odysseus by King Aeolus, and why did Homer include these acts in the epic? In lines 39 through 53, it is revealed that Odysseus' crew had been muttering to each other, believing that Odysseus was hauling troves of gold and silver in the windbag given to him by King Aeolus. They decided to commit mutiny against their leader Odysseus and open the bag, showing the unheroic qualities of Odysseus' men. Homer included these actions to show a stark contrast to Odysseus. Odysseus is caring, considerate, and intellectual. He has many morals and are able to follow them. His crew, on the other hand, are distrustful and inconsiderate. They are shown to be far away from any definition of an epic hero. Odysseus' qualities, however, show that he is on another level than most. He is truly shown as an epic hero when put up against others. Key question 2. When Odysseus came to the crew with the stag, what did he say and how does his speech convey his character? In lines 189 through 195, Odysseus brings a magnificent stag to his hungered soldiers. In addition to the stag, he delivers them a speech. Odysseus tells them that their time to die is not yet, and that there is still food and drinks up in their ship. He asks them, "Why die of hunger here?" Odysseus' short speech touched the hearts of all of his men, rallying them into hopefulness. This shows one of Odysseus' great qualities, his leadership. His words were strong enough to bring his men together, show them light. This is a true sign of a leader. Key question 3. How did Odysseus react to Eurylochus' pleas, and how does this show Odysseus' character? In lines 294 through 300, Eurylochus, seeing his comrades turn into swine, ran back to tell Odysseus of the news. Hearing this, Odysseus immediately prepares to go to Circe. When Eurylochus saw this, he begged Odysseus not to go, and not to make himself go, for there would only be misery. No man would come back. Odysseus snaps back to Eurylochus that will stay at the ship as he asked, but Odysseus must go as necessity drives him on. This shows his very end-goal-oriented mind, and how if he sees something must be done, he will do it. He will act no matter the pleas of others if necessary.
Hello, today we will be doing Book 10, Part 2. So our first question, lines 317 through 337. What did Hermes do to help Odysseus, and how does it contribute to the qualities of epic? Well, in this passage, Hermes helped Odysseus because Honestly, for the most part, the gods were on his side, rooting for his safe arrival home, with the obvious exception of Poseidon, of course. And after questioning his motives for wanting to venture into Circe's halls, Hermes tells Odysseus, I can save you, free you from that danger. Look, here is a potent drug. Its power alone will shield you from the fatal day. So basically, it's like in Harry Potter when Dobby gives the gillyweed to Harry for the Triwizard Tournament. That's how I like to think of it, anyways. So this contributes to our qualities of epic through penetration of the veil. In this case, it's, Hermes who comes down to help out our epic hero. So question 2, lines 416 to 427. What was Circe's attitude towards Odysseus in these lines, and how does this show the Greek concept of xenia? So basically, once he bested her magic potion, thanks to some help from Hermes, Circe completely changed her attitude towards Odysseus. She was on her knees, begging him to stay and presenting him with food and wine and baths for him and his crew. So in these specific lines, she shows great sorrow and distress when Odysseus doesn't eat his food right away, saying, Why just sit there, struck dumb, eating your heart out, not touching food or drink? This is significant because it illustrates clearly just how important the concept of hospitality was to the Greeks. If even her shows such gracious welcome, albeit after trying to kill him, still, it's pretty significant. Question 3, lines 535 to 545. What is the significance of Odysseus' journey into the underworld, and how does it move our story? So, when Odysseus questions the goddess after coming to his senses about returning home, he's not really too pleased to find out he still has a ways to get home. Part of this, probably a large part of this, is because he has to travel to the underworld. And at this point, he hasn't even been abducted by Calypso yet. So, this is pretty intense. Sorry. This journey is, lost my place. Oh my goodness gracious. This journey is significant because it's the ultimate challenge. I mean, to go to the house of the dead and come back alive. Good luck with that. Dobby cannot help you in this one. And since it's the house of death, it moves our story towards death, surprisingly, but also propels our epic hero forward to saving our epic polis, so it's a nice balance. I hope you enjoyed our lecture series this week. Tune in next time. Woo!